The Green Bay Packers seized everything from the Dallas Cowboys, who had carpe omnia dreams this season. We're here at the Star. Exit interviews were today. We waited around in the locker room for a while. What was your biggest takeaways?
Well, I'm glad you bring up the carpe omnia. That's Latin, by the way. Around here, not a dead language, even though it is now. They won't be using that for the Dallas Cowboys anymore. That was Mike McCarthy's season opening theme, and in Latin it means seize everything. And of course, in the end, they carped nothing in a 48-32 loss. That locker room, of course, and we were in the building at AT&T. That was not a fun place to be. It was funereal, is that the word?
Yeah.
And then on Monday, the morning after, worse.
Definitely worse.
Because nobody's here in terms of their willingness to speak to Cowboys Nation, to speak to NFL fans, or to speak to us. Which, by the way, the reason it's important, and I understand, they really are devastated, and many of them already spoke on Sunday night. So what, I got to do it again?
There's nothing's changed for the Cowboys players to talk to us about.
Right. Now, Mike McCarthy is another issue, and we'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, when they call them exit interviews, the original idea was they're having an exit interview with their coaches,
right? Not
with Bree Amaranthus or Mike Fisher. But then the media and the public wants exit interviews with the players too. And in this case, you want answers. And they feel obviously like they gave as many as they could last night. So one guy in the locker room spoke. One guy.
Yep.
Your buddy.
TJ Bass. Yeah, so it was interesting in there. I would say too, it's just a weird vibe as people are, cleaning out their lockers. They're obviously done a lot sooner than they thought they were going to be. So it's just a weird vibe around here.
Yeah, once upon a time, it was literally a black trash bag.
Yeah.
And you took all your junk out of your cabinet and out of your locker and threw. Now I'm sure it's Louis Vuitton bags that they're filling with their junk.
Yeah.
We were hanging out in the locker room until past noon, at which point we realized we were wasting our time because noon was the time that the players were set to meet
with McCarthy,
and then shortly after that, their exit interviews with players, with their position coaches and whatnot. So yeah, a kind of morbid scene here. It is normal for every team that loses its last game, even the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
that's a difficult morning after, but this is especially difficult because this team had such realistic high hopes, not just high hopes, but realistic high hopes, and because the final score, the situation, all of it, this might be the worst loss in Cowboy history. Once upon a time in the 60s, the Cowboys, after the Ice Bowl game, came back and had a chance to win a championship. Don Meredith was the quarterback, and he had an awful game. They lost, and he retired right after it, in part because he was so devastated by all of it. That's the last time that the Cowboys have lost a playoff game like this. This is a number 7 seed in the Packers beating a number 2. That's never happened before. So this is a historically bad outcome for Dallas. Now comes the what to do next. And it does include conversations with the head coach. Now, first the head coach has to have his conversations with ownership. And just to make sure that we're really clear when we talk about changes, I want to be very precise here because this is getting misunderstood. The original Jerry Jones plan for Monday morning was the normal Monday morning plan. There's a big meeting room here, big round table, and there's Jerry and Steven, Will and Mike, and everybody. And we sit around and we could celebrate for a minute that we had that win over a cup of coffee, and then we move on to the next week. That meeting got postponed. That meeting's still going to have to happen in some form, but that meeting got postponed, and instead, what I'm going to call you've heard of a come to Jesus meeting?
Yes.
Let's just call this a come to Jerry meeting. Jerry's going to have a meeting with Mike McCarthy and they're going to discuss where they're at. It's not going to be around the big round table with everybody. So that marks a change, and Jerry conceded to that on Sunday night. Another odd wrinkle, and I've said in reporting this at CowboysSI.com and on Twitter at Fish Sports. By the way, you can get Bree on Twitter as well at
Bree Amaranthus.
I'm not trying to make too much of it. I'm just telling you a fact. And you do with it what you will. On Sunday night after the game, the Cowboys sent out an email to us and all local media members saying that on Monday there was a tentative plan. And the two lines read, tentative plan first, Mike McCarthy press conference, to be determined based on the weather. And then after that, exit interviews to be determined based on the weather. That was at 8:30 p.m. Central Time Sunday night. We woke up this morning at 5 o'clock. And then 3 hours later, here comes another email at 7:59 a.m. saying, okay, we got the Monday plan. And it's just one line. Exit interviews. Be careful driving over here at 11:30.
Right.
No mention of the aforementioned Mike McCarthy press conference. Does that mean he had been fired?
Yeah, no.
Nobody said that.
No.
Nobody said that. Does it mean that he's obligated to do it on Monday? No. In fact, my colleagues Jane Slater of NFL Network and John Machota of The Athletic have pointed out they usually don't do the Mike McCarthy exit interview with the media, the goodbye on Monday. That's true. 2022 it happened on Wednesday. But that doesn't take away from the fact they sent an email saying it was going to happen.
Okay.
So either something screwed up or somebody changed their plans. I'm not saying go berserk on it. Just like I'm not saying to the report that Bill Belichick right now is on Arthur Blank's yacht, the owner of the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
That's the rumor, and I think it's a decent one. I'm not saying that means, hey, maybe they're just fishing for marlin.
Maybe.
I'm not saying it means anything more than the facts I'm giving you, but I'm giving you the facts as best we know them. That it's quite clear now that Mike McCarthy's job security is up in the air. Otherwise, there would be an even less morbid feeling to this building.
The Cowboys are 1-3 in the playoffs under head coach Mike McCarthy. However, the grass is not always greener, and it's not always as simple as a knee-jerk reaction. Change for the sake of change is not always good. However, there are arguments to be made on both sides of this. What are your pros and cons when it comes to keeping McCarthy or maybe not?
Yeah, some things are relative. Jason Garrett, friend of the show, they were perennially almost good. They went 8-8 a lot. They make the change to Mike McCarthy, and after the COVID year, he goes 12-5, 12-5, and 12-5. That is something.
Yeah.
That you do want to be careful before you throw that in the trash can.
Of course.
So even if you're not a McCarthy guy, and I know many in the media decided when he first got here, they decided they weren't going to be McCarthy guys for whatever reason. You do have to be prepared no matter what you do. You can bring the best coach in the history of the world in here who even had guarantees. It's still going to be a change. But you're going to run a different offense. You're going to run the same offense. You're going to teach players to do. It would be a change.
And what change out there is better than what you already have?
That's one of the problems. I'm seeing everybody say, well, clearly Belichick's better. Clearly Harbaugh's better. I'm sorry to break this to you.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as clearly.
No.
There is no guarantee.
I agree 100%.
If Bill Belichick was clearly better than the next coach, McCarthy or whomever, why is he available?
Why does he
Right?
have a job? Correct.
He hasn't been. They haven't done well in New England in 5 years.
Right.
So I think that was the worst offense in football in New England this year with Ezekiel Elliott playing there, and maybe the worst team in football. And Bill Belichick built it.
Right.
And now he's somehow infallible. So I think that's all part of the pro McCarthy. Just like, as you say, the grass is not always greener. The next coach isn't always better than the last coach, no matter how disgruntled or upset or bothered you are by the results with this coach.
It seems like everybody wants to blame somebody with this very disappointing Cowboys first round exit playoff loss. And of course, quarterback Dak Prescott is going to take so much of that blame right away, which he shoulders and goes out, in the press conference after the game and says, I sucked. But when people go, okay, now we need to get rid of Dak, let's talk about Dak's contract and what this decision would actually mean.
Okay, so to the point of the blame.
Yeah.
Obviously, it always starts at the top. And Jerry Jones acknowledges that. Now, that doesn't mean, I know there's Cowboy fans saying, he's got to be accountable. But what accountable how? Like, what, you want to give him a spanking? I mean, what does accountable mean? He's the owner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
You can call for change in the way this organization is structured. If Bill Belichick comes here, maybe that would signify a change of sorts. But even when Bill Parcells was here, he still worked for Jerry. And even when Jimmy Johnson was here, while they were certainly partners, he still worked for Jerry. In fact, it was Jimmy's feeling that he didn't want to do that exactly anymore, and he didn't want to share the credit. And it was his ego as much as Jerry's ego, and so the divorce happened.